We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. We're going to be diving into a little bit of basketball news this afternoon. I'm recording this on Sunday. I was planning on making this video with the recent decommitment of Navon Shabbaz, who was the lone holdover from the Fran McCaffrey era. And he recently decommitted. And it did make sense that he was the lone holdover. Although I think you could make a case for, pretty much every single recruit if you wanted to from the high school ranks. But because he's still young and there's still a lot of room for development, so on and so on, it made sense that McCollum was in theory much more open to holding on to him for the future. But then I just saw, I can't believe I missed this, but saw that recently, I think it was the 15th that this happened, high 3-star, borderline 4-star, small forward, shooting guard, 6'6" prospect from Storm Lake, Jaden Coon decided to commit to Creighton, joining Owen Freeman, who went to Creighton, and of course, Josh Dix as well. Oddly, I actually think that Josh Dix going to Creighton probably, and even Owen Freeman for that matter, but probably did help Creighton land him, because he's probably met with those players, talked with them, especially when Fran McCaffrey was at Iowa. And them going to Creighton probably didn't hurt, especially if he had an affinity for Fran McCaffrey and the players that were on the Iowa Hawkeye roster. So I'm going to be discussing that a little bit but before I do, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment. You guys know the drill. And without further ado, let's get into this. I really want to get to this, get this channel to 2,000 subscribers. We're really close. The channel, I've said this in the most recent last couple of videos, has seen a pretty substantial uptick, with me being able to put out for, a 3-4 month period, content after content, video after video. And so I thank you guys for that. I do think 2,000 subscribers is doable, and I'm really hoping that the channel can get to that. So let's start with Navon Shabbaz. Recruiting is tough, because at the end of the day, only the coaching staff and those immediately involved really truly know why something did or did not take place. I think Navon, but if you guys aren't aware, Navon Shabbaz, I believe he goes to Assumption High School. He is a 2026 prospect. He's a combo guard, big point guard. And he committed to Fran McCaffrey pretty early on. I mean, it's not unheard of for players to commit that early, but honestly, basketball players, are pretty patient in their recruitment, because at the end of the day, there's only so many, Division I quality basketball players. And if you got it, you got it. And a lot of times basketball players will wait and see if more programs are going to tag along and offer scholarship positions throughout the process. So he committed pretty early on in the process. He's actually not really that highly rated. 247 Sports doesn't even have him as a top 3 state of Iowa prospect. They have him graded as an 85, which is pretty mid-level. And so anyways, Fran McCaffrey leaves Iowa. He remains committed through the coaching search. Ben McCollum gets hired on, and he remains committed. And then we hear some news and see some information dropped that he would be recommitting and like reestablishing himself and his commitment to Ben McCollum and Iowa. And okay, that's fair enough. And then, fast forward to about a week ago, and he decides that he would be decommitting and hearing from other schools, which, funny enough, everybody knows that these players continue to hear from these schools. Unless players like openly tell coaches not to send any recruitment stuff, and even then, they still probably receive a lot of recruiting letters. So the fact that he said that to me is not completely honest. All these recruits absolutely still receive information. So him being committed or not committed, is kind of irrelevant. Also, because it's so early in the process, if Ben McCollum really does want Navon Shabbaz, there's still plenty of time for him to reposition himself and regain that commitment. But that's the thing, guys. Like, at the end of the day, as I said, only Iowa and Ben McCollum are truly aware of whether they even want this kid or not, or exactly what happened behind the scenes. I think it's completely possible that based off of just from an outsider's view looking in, if you look at the fact that Iowa doesn't have any young point guard on the roster, okay, they only have Bennett Sturts, and that's pretty much it, and they have some Drake transfers that are like combo guards. Navon Shabbaz would effectively be the guy coming in to replace, outside of like transfer portal targets, whoever or when he arrived at Iowa. You take that into account. You take into account that he recommitted. I think it's highly likely that the trail and the love from the Iowa coaching staff towards Navon Shabbaz went cold. I don't think that they were as hot on his commitment as maybe Fran McCaffrey was when originally they landed the commitment. Now it is kind of odd though that the whole recommitment thing happened, because if that's the case and it happened now, if what I'm saying is true and it happened now, why didn't it happen before? So, but again, ultimately, only the coaching staff knows. If they want him, there's still plenty of time to regain that commitment. Looking at his recruiting ranking, judging Ben McCollum, his coaching staff, and all of that stuff, I think it is definitely likely that they just did not necessarily want him as a commitment anymore. I think it's possible that he got to Iowa, Ben McCollum got to Iowa, he maintained communication with pretty much all the recruits that were already there just to kind of put a feel out, just in case. But after reviewing and looking at Navon Shabbaz as a prospect more, it is, in my opinion, likely that the trail went cold. So it is what it is. Again, if they want him, there's still plenty of time for Iowa to land him. Now, the bigger piece of news, in my estimation, because Navon Shabbaz at this point isn't the biggest recruit in the world. Not that he, couldn't really elevate himself, as there's still a lot of time and he's still pretty young. He's going into his senior year. Would, of course, be that Jaden Coon decided to commit to Creighton. This is on the heels of Cooper DeJean putting out a tweet, a picture stating, Northwest Iowa to Iowa, let's make it happen. Really, selling and trying to get Iowa to land Jaden Coon. This is on the heels of Ben McCollum doing in Storm Lake visit. There's a picture of him with Jaden Coon. It looks like at the high school. You guys can go and see that on his recruiting profile. And I expected this recruitment to go a little bit longer. And for Jaden Coon to perhaps give a little bit more time to Ben McCollum to see, really if that connection could be built. Now, the relationship that was developed between Jaden Coon and Iowa was primarily with Fran McCaffrey, but I'm sure that Ben McCollum recruited Jaden Coon at least slightly at Drake. Now, did he recruit him the hardest? Probably not, because he knew that it was a long shot for him to land him at Drake. But at the very least, I'm sure that baseline introductory was there. So this kid is, first, second, top 3 in the state of Iowa ranked, depending on the recruiting service. There is actually a 4-star in the state of Iowa, but it's kind of hard to tell because there's this program called Iowa United Prep. And so it's kind of hard, to judge, which, to me, what I consider state of Iowa guys are guys that play for, high schools in the state of Iowa. I don't know that I would count a prep school in the state of Iowa. I think the guy's name is like AJ Dykstra or something like that. Just paused it to take a look at it. His name is Arafan Diane, and he apparently lives in Norwalk, Iowa. Maybe that's where Iowa United Prep is located. But I don't consider a prep school the same as like Storm Lake High School, Northwest High School, but technically Navon Shabbaz plays for Iowa United Prep as well. So, but the other thing is that Ben McCollum was born and raised in Storm Lake. And it seemed, including myself, like this was a slam dunk. I really thought that Iowa, by hiring Ben McCollum, had the inside track to land Jaden Coon. Again, is Jaden Coon the most highly rated guy, the most high-ranked guy in the world? No. But still, he is a Power 4 level prospect, top 150 player in the country, regardless of recruiting service you look at. 6'6", 6'7" guys don't grow on trees that can shoot the basketball. Still plenty of room to grow and add muscle mass and things like that. And obviously Iowa wanted him. Ben McCollum wanted him. He went and visited Jaden Coon. So to me, this is a miss. This is absolutely a miss. I gave a first 90 days grade for Ben McCollum, and I gave him an A based on what we were hearing him say, some of the stuff that he was doing, going on some podcasts and really putting Iowa basketball front and center, advertising Iowa basketball, and totally putting out the message of a revamped Iowa basketball program. And still, he still gets credit for all of that. That is something that it was much needed from Fran McCaffrey that he simply was not doing, and he was simply not generating the excitement and buzz needed for the University of Iowa basketball, which is why an apathetic fan base was created. So with this piece of news, and again, it is entirely possible that in the end, because there's still a ton of time between now and signing day, Commitments don't mean a gosh darn thing. If you think that Iowa is done recruiting Jaden Coon, if they really want him, you are mistaken. They are not done. They will continue to recruit him until he says, stop recruiting me. And even then, they will still probably recruit him. With that in mind, I do think that this is a big loss. And I would bring his first couple of months down to a B plus. I'm not going to hold the Navon Shabbaz decommitment too much against him, because I do think that I would say, for me personally, I think it's likely that Ben McCollum and the coaching staff was not showing as much interest in him as maybe Navon Shabbaz thought was indicated. And it is likely that they did not really want his commitment any longer. So I'm not going to hold that one too much against him. However, Jaden Coon, we know that Iowa wanted him. You look at the Storm Lake connection, he's an in-state guy. This is a miss. So I would bring his first 90 days down to like a B plus at this point. I don't want to ding him too much because it's not over yet. And the class still might be a really good class. He still might land Jaden Coon. Even if he doesn't land Jaden Coon, as I said, the class might still end up really strong. But for all those reasons, it is a loss. I would probably bring him down to a B plus. And when you look at this recruiting, you look at the 2026 recruiting class, this is probably the most talented group of basketball recruits in the state of Iowa collectively in probably about 5 years. I mean, there are 6 guys that have Power 4 level offers. 2026, you have Arfin Diane, Jaden Coon, and as I said, I don't really count Iowa United Prep, but still. You have Colin Rice, you have Landon Davis, you have Navon Shabbaz. Just to compare that with 2025, let me get this pulled up real quick. It's going to take a sec to load. I think there was only one guy that was rated in the state of Iowa in 2025, and Iowa landed him. Actually, there was 2. There's Jack McCaffrey, and actually there's another guy, Grandview Christian. I've never seen this kid before. Emiliano Barantes, Grandview Christian in the Des Moines area. He's 6'8", 205 pounds, and he's got a grade of an 87. And he's currently committed to UIC. Let me actually look at that real quick. Just to put this in perspective, and I've told you guys before, the state of Iowa really goes like this. Usually there's about 1 to 3 guys. Sometimes there's only 1. Sometimes, a decent year has about 3 guys that are Division I level, mid-major, Power 4 level guys in the state of Iowa. Just to put it into perspective, 2023, which was the class of Omaha Biliou, Price Sanford, and Drew Kingery, that's 2 guys that were Power 4 level. 2024, 0. There was no recruits ranked. 2025, there's 2. I don't see Iowa in on the kid that I just mentioned that's listed, that goes to Grandview Christian. But maybe that's worth monitoring. And then, of course, there is the player that Iowa landed, the center. First, who I'm talking about is Trevin Urich, or a.k.a. Urach, a.k.a. Jurek. I only do that because there's always people in the comment section that correct me on his last name. Somebody told me that it's silent J, Urich or Urach, like that. But so for 2025, that'd put it at 2 Power 4 level guys. One in Trevin was mostly a group, mid-major guy until, Iowa coaching change, so on and so on. And then, as I said, you look at 2026, and there are 6 guys that are not just Division I level, Power 4 level. So all of that being said, it's a big loss. So time will tell. I'm not going to overreact to this. There's been videos and pictures of Ben McCollum out on the recruiting trail. There was a picture that was dropped of Ben McCollum sitting like 4 coaches down from Fran McCaffrey, and that, they're both at the recruiting evaluation. They're evaluating their recruiting at these showcases. If you're not aware, that's how the recruiting system works now. High school is recruited. There are still coaches that go and watch high school games, but the primarily the point of contact for these recruiting situations are these evaluation periods. And these evaluation periods primarily lie within these like showcases, NY to LA events, these AAU travel basketball, Nike, Adidas sponsored events. So, we'll see what new names drop, what new offers drop with Ben McCollum and the new staff, because we've been kind of waiting to see which offers are still holding over. Which offers that Fran McCaffrey gave is Ben McCollum still going to honor. And it looks like it's pretty much none. It's maybe only a handful, which, that makes sense. It does. Ben McCollum is the new coach for a reason. And Fran McCaffrey and Ben McCollum, while I'm sure there's some overlap in how they view the game of basketball, ultimately, by and large, I think they're quite different coaches. One is much younger, one is older. I think one is more of an offensive system coach, kind of the free flow of offense, and less restrictive. Fran McCaffrey became more open and not as burdensome on his players as time went on, rather than more so. He lightened up as time went on, rather than getting more grisly and more burlesome towards his players. And again, you look at his offensive systems and his team as a whole. Offense was the main focal point. They wanted a free-flowing offense where guys had confidence, they felt comfortable shooting the basketball, things like that. I'm not saying that Ben McCollum doesn't value those things, but again, there's a reason why there was a coaching change, okay? These 2 guys are going to attack it differently. And where you begin at attacking it differently is your personnel, who you have on the roster. From an athletic standpoint, from a competition standpoint, from a culture standpoint, the whole 9 yards. So just one more piece of news, and this isn't really news, this is just intel. It does look like Iowa is in really good position to land Northwest, Waukee, Iowa, I believe is the same school that Price Sanford went to. Colin Rice, 6'7", small forward, which might be why Jaden Coon also didn't commit to Iowa, because Iowa was heavily recruiting another small forward in the state of Iowa. But looks like Iowa is in good shape to land him. He is favored to select the Iowa Hawkeyes. But of course, Iowa does not have his commitment yet. And again, there's guys, Landon Davis, who also goes to Northwest, who's 6'8", power forward. He has a grade of an 86. He's a top 250 player in the country. And then there is this guy, Jackson Clark from Keokuk, who is 6'10". So we will see what happens with that. So just to wrap this up, guys, recruiting really goes in ebbs and flows. I've told you guys time and time again, I no longer am emotionally attached to recruiting. You guys shouldn't be either. Yes, it does directly, for the most part, impact whether Iowa has a good roster or not. But believe you me, it is not completely up to us to land these players. Yes, we can help by donating to the collective and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's mostly up to the coaching staff. If they want to win, they will find a way to get the best players on their roster and suiting up for the University of Iowa within reason. So I guess what I'm saying is I want to give, especially early on, I want to give Ben McCollum the benefit of the doubt. I am going to ding him for this, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he is going to get, continue to get, because he's already done a good job thus far, talent on the roster. He's going to continue to recruit hard. And just to put a bow on me saying that it's a ding of, on his resume not landing Jaden Coon, in the grand scheme of things, Iowa landing Jaden Coon or not landing Jaden Coon is not going to be the most influential decision in the world, okay? But what we can judge is Ben McCollum's effort. And before this news came out, I was going to drop a video detailing why I was so impressed with his first, couple of months. Even I was going to do another video on top of the video that I already did for my first 90 days grade of his, because to me, it is apparent that he wants this program to be successful. He is doing all the right things. The effort is there. He's recruiting hard. He is getting out. He's watching the players. He's talking to the players. He's checking in with the players. He's going on all the podcasts. He's talking to all the people. He is doing everything that is needed. So even though Iowa did not land Jaden Coon, which in large part probably has to do with the fact that, Ben McCollum hasn't had a full season as the University of Iowa coach. So it's going to be hard, at least initially, to get non-Drake related recruits to buy into the Ben McCollum system when there's very little Iowa evidence. There's evidence elsewhere, but there's not University of Iowa evidence. So it's going to take at least a year to bridge that gap, maybe a little bit less if I was able to have immediate success under Ben McCollum. It's going to take a little bit of time to bridge that gap and for players to be able to see and say, you know what, Ben McCollum can win at the Big Ten level. Ben McCollum's offense does that at the Big Ten level. Bennett Sturts was able to do that in a Ben McCollum system at the University of Iowa. It's going to take a little bit of time to do that. But in the meantime, what I want to see and what I have seen is the effort. So I want to leave you guys with that. I think that's a good spot to leave this. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, like, comment. You guys know the drill. And I really hope you guys have had a fantastic week or having a great weekend. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. In fact, our feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you, Hawk fans. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.